My daughter-in-law gave me a 1-hour ultimatum to leave my own home. Get out now. What would you do if you were told to get out of your own house? Have you ever felt so disrespected in your own home that it stole the air from your lungs? The words, "You need to leave, Margaret, just for a few hours," were not a request. They were a declaration of war in the kingdom I had built. Sarah stood in my kitchen, a space that had witnessed a lifetime of my family's joy and grief, and told me to get out, her voice a blend of fake concern and cold authority. What secret was so big that my own family would try to evict me for a single evening? The answer would unravel our strained peace and reveal a betrayal so profound it made that initial ultimatum feel like a gentle kiss. But before the doorbell rang and changed everything, if you know what it's like to be made small in your own space, hit subscribe and join our community. Your support means everything. Now let me tell you how I got to that moment. It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. Michael and Sarah had been living with me for 4 months after their latest business venture imploded. "Just until we get back on our feet," Michael had said, but the charm was wearing thin, replaced by an entitlement that seeped into the walls. I was bringing in groceries when I heard Sarah's sharp voice from the living room. "She's always here, Michael. We can't have a private conversation. This meeting is too important. David and his associates cannot get a whiff of her. It complicates the narrative. We're presenting an image of an unencumbered power couple, not people living in their mother-in-law's attic. She has to be gone." My blood ran cold. David Chen was a real estate developer known for swallowing properties. What narrative required my absence? A sickening dread uncoiled in my stomach. This wasn't about a dinner party, it was about my house. The ultimatum came on Friday. I was in the garden tending to my late husband's roses when Sarah approached. "We're having crucial business associates over tonight. For Michael's future, we need the house empty. You need to leave for a few hours." I told her I wasn't leaving my home. Her smile vanished. "It's not a request. You need to be gone by 6:30. Make it work." Michael stood behind her, silent, his eyes on the ground. The betrayal was a physical blow. "Get out now." The words echoed, a line in the sand. The slow erosion of my autonomy was over. As shock turned to focused rage, I knew I wouldn't leave. I went upstairs and called Eleanor Vance, a formidable real estate mogul from my past. I told her everything. "David Chen is a predator," she said. "He partners with family members to acquire assets. They're staging an intervention on your ownership. You stay right where you are, be the immovable owner. I'll be your +1 with my associate, Amanda Cross, a lawyer who's been trying to nail Chen for years." Relief washed over me. I had allies. I then called my lawyer, Thomas Richardson, who confirmed the house was solely mine in an ironclad will. "Do not sign anything," he cautioned. Armed with this, I showered, put on my best dress, and at 6:55 walked downstairs. Sarah turned, saw me, and nearly dropped her charcuterie board. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "I'm ready for our guests," I said pleasantly. "As the homeowner, I should be present for any discussions about my property." The word "my" landed like a hammer. The doorbell rang. Sarah shot me a look of pure hatred before forcing a smile. I opened the door to David Chen and his associate. "I'm Margaret Williams, the owner of the home," I said, shaking his hand. He looked surprised, then intrigued. Sarah rushed in, trying to say I was leaving. "Nonsense," I said. "Any discussion about this house involves me." We moved to the living room. They began their pitch about the property's potential and a quick transaction, speaking as if I weren't there. Then the doorbell rang again. "I invited friends," I said, opening the door to Eleanor and Amanda. Eleanor, in a crimson pantsuit, swept in. Amanda, with a severe blonde bob and a leather binder, followed. David Chen stood up, stunned. "Eleanor, Amanda, a surprise." "I'll bet," Eleanor purred. "We're here to hear your proposal." The dynamic shifted instantly. Amanda opened her binder. "Mr. Chen, have you provided disclosure on the zoning complaints for the adjacent lot you're bundling this with?" Chen flustered. "That's not relevant." "A judge would disagree," Amanda said coolly. She confirmed I'd signed nothing. The meeting unraveled. Eleanor and Amanda dismantled their vague promises and exposed the greedy scheme. Chen and his partner left hastily. The door closed. Sarah screamed, "You ruined everything, you selfish old woman." Michael cried, "Mom, we were desperate. Desperate people don't get to decide my life," I said firmly. "I gave them a choice. Leave tonight or stay under a new, legally binding rental agreement with strict terms including rent and a respect clause. Trapped with no options, they signed. After Alina and Amanda left, I stood in the hallway hearing my son's sobs upstairs. There was no joy, only a grim resolution. I had reclaimed my home and my self-respect, but this was just the beginning. The next morning, the real battle began, unearthing secrets and debts that would make the dinner party seem trivial. What happened next tested our new arrangement in ways I never imagined. So, what would you have done? Have you ever had to stand up to your own family? Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter. The fight for my home was far from over. The ledger in my hands was not just a book, it was a declaration of war, and I knew the next move had to be mine. I didn't wait. I called Alina Vance and Amanda Cross, and within 2 hours we were seated in a private conference room at Alina's firm, the damning ledger open on the polished table between us. Amanda's eyes, sharp and analytical, scanned the pages, her expression hardening with each turned leaf. "This is premeditated," she stated, her voice cold and precise. "We're looking at a potential criminal case for conspiracy to commit fraud and elder abuse. The Dr. Evans notation is particularly concerning. It suggests they were planning to co-opt a medical professional into their scheme." Our strategy was formulated with brutal efficiency. First, Amanda would draft and send a cease and desist letter to Sarah, explicitly referencing the ledger's contingencies section. The language was deliberately chosen to shock and terrify, mentioning specific statutes for fraud and unlawful imprisonment to make the legal threat tangible and immediate. The goal was to shake Sarah's confidence, to let her know her secret plan was exposed and that she was now operating in a minefield of her own creation. Second, Alina activated her network, hiring a discreet and relentless private investigator named Frank to conduct a deep dive into Sarah's past and their complete financial history. "We need to know if this is a pattern," Alina insisted. "Nobody thinks of this on their own. She learned this somewhere." The third part of the plan was psychological. I would return home and behave as if nothing had happened, but I would begin subtly reinforcing my competence. I would mention speaking with my financial advisor loudly and clearly when they were within earshot. I would meticulously pay bills online at the kitchen table. I would become a fortress of visible, undeniable capability. I arrived home as Michael was leaving for a shift at a warehouse he'd secured, a development that surprised me. The shame in his eyes was still there, but it was now mixed with a flicker of purpose. He mumbled a greeting and left. Sarah was in the living room, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice a low, frantic whisper. She fell silent the moment she saw me. The cease and desist letter arrived by certified mail the next morning. I made sure to be the one to sign for it, placing the thick legal envelope on the kitchen counter where Sarah would inevitably find it. The effect was instantaneous. I heard a sharp gasp from the kitchen, followed by the sound of her retreating footsteps pounding up the stairs. The slammed bedroom door was a symphony of panic. For the rest of the day, she was a ghost in the house, but I could feel her fear radiating through the walls. That evening, the first crack in their alliance appeared. I overheard Michael confronting her in their room, his voice strained. "What did you do, Sarah? What is this? Amanda Cross is Mom's lawyer. Why is she sending you letters?" Sarah's response was a furious, defensive hiss, too muffled to make out, but the tone was pure venom. The ledger had done its job. It had introduced a seed of doubt in Michael, a suspicion that his wife's schemes ran far deeper than he had ever known. 2 days later, Frank the investigator called with his first report. "You were right, Alina," he said, his voice a low rumble over the speakerphone. "Sarah Miller is an alias. Her legal name is Sarah Millstone. She was married before for a brief 6 months to a widower in his 70s named Arthur Brigham. He died unexpectedly and she inherited a significant portion of his estate before his children could contest the will. There was an investigation, but it was closed due to lack of evidence. The pattern is there. She targets older individuals with assets and isolates them. The air left my lungs. This was no longer about my son's poor choice in a wife. It was about a predator who had specifically targeted my son to get to me. My home wasn't just a convenience, it was her designated score. I fumbled with the deadbolt. The metal latch was stiff and old. Come on, I whispered, my voice rough. I finally threw the door open, hitting the parking lot air, which was thick and damp. The motel sign buzzed, spitting sparks of pale neon into the thin rain. I didn't waste a second. Checking out felt ridiculous. I jumped into the car. The key slipped once in the ignition and I cursed it under my breath. Not now. Don't quit on me right now, you stubborn old thing. The engine finally caught with a cough and a roar. I pulled out of the lot too fast, tires spinning and spitting gravel onto the empty pavement. I was driving back toward the city I had fled just 48 hours earlier. I thought about the voice on that terrible message. It sounded young, it sounded terrified, it talked about the package and a deadline. Those were not words connected to David's small, sensible consulting business. Those were words from a bad, frightening movie, but they were real, they were happening to my son. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles went white. I had to be smart, I had to be fast, I could not panic. Panic was useless. I told myself I was a burden, I told myself I should leave him alone. That was the huge mistake. I should have stayed, I should have seen this trouble coming. But I'll make it right now, I have to. He needs his mother whether he thinks he does or not. I was on the highway now. The city lights were a pale, sickly yellow smudge in the dark distance. The isolation had ended. My new journey, the one driven by the hope for a good outcome, saving my child, had begun in a terrible rush. I felt an energy I hadn't realized I still possessed. It was the adrenaline of a mother running toward the fire. My phone buzzed again, resting in the cup holder. I glanced down. It was the same unknown number. I pressed the speaker button, not taking my eyes off the road. Hello, who is this? The voice on the other end was high, thin, and shaking uncontrollably. It belonged to a young man named Peter. Mrs. Hayes, is this David's mother? Yes, I am. Who are you? What is happening to David? Tell me right this minute. They're going to kill him. They're going to stop. Just stop. Take a breath, son. Tell me your name. My name is Peter. I work for David. I was supposed to take care of the last thing, the thing he had, but I couldn't. They took it. And now they took him. I vaguely remembered a nervous young man David hired recently. This was a consequence of David's secret, flawed life finally coming to the surface. Who took him? Who are they? And what is the thing? They are bad people, Mrs. Hayes, really bad, organized, not police, not bank people. They're the ones who bankrolled the whole terrible thing. The scheme David was running, the scheme, not David's sensible business. A scheme. This was the first cold, hard fact about the crime threat. It was bigger than debt. It was organized. It was criminal. What kind of scheme? David runs a marketing company, Peter. He laughed, a hysterical, dry sound that made me shiver. No, Mrs. Hayes, not for 6 months now. He was working for a private fund, a dark fund. They needed people with good local names, people who looked normal, to sign off on things. He was moving money, dirty money. They promised him enough to pay off his crushing old debts. He needed that money desperately. I felt a wave of cold sickness. David had lied. He had involved himself in something criminal and vast. This confirmed my son's serious non-victim flaws. Where are you now? Are you safe? I'm in a diner, way out on the old state road. I'm terrified to go home. They came to David's house already. They ripped the place apart looking for something. They're looking for the financial key. He kept all the codes, all the proof, somewhere safe. They need it to finish the transfer and disappear. The deadline is tonight. Listen to me, Peter. You can't go to the police yet. You have to tell me where we can meet. Somewhere quiet. I need the full story and I need it right now. Peter hesitated. The phone line was silent except for his ragged breathing and the sound of my car engine roaring down the empty lanes. The rest stop on the highway. Exit 47. The far end of the parking lot near the garbage bins. 5 minutes. Please hurry, I'll wait. But if I see anyone at all who looks official or big, I'm running and I'm not stopping. I'm 5 minutes away from that exit. I promise. Stay put, Peter. And Peter, don't hang up. Keep the line open. Just put the phone in your pocket. I need to know you're there. I hung up my speakerphone and pressed the gas pedal harder, the engine screaming slightly in protest. The highway signs rushed by. Exit 47. I was driving too fast, but the thought of going slowly, of wasting even a minute, was a terrible, suffocating thought. The rest stop was poorly lit. Just a small, tired building closed up for the night and a vast, empty lot for truckers who weren't there. I spotted Peter immediately. He was huddled beneath a sickly-looking fluorescent lamp, pacing back and forth in a frantic circle, clutching a small paper bag to his chest. He was so young, maybe 25, wearing a thin, threadbare jacket that offered no comfort. I pulled up far away from the light, positioning my car so I could see everything and leave quickly. I got out fast, my eyes scanning the shadows and the distant highway lights. The fear felt like a tangible thing, heavy and cold in the humid air. Peter. He flinched violently at the sound of my voice. He looked gaunt and terrified. His eyes were red from crying or lack of sleep. Mrs. Hayes, they know about David's backup plan. They know he hid the codes. I tried to tell them I didn't know where. They hurt the security guard at their office. I saw the whole thing. They are serious. I guided him gently toward the back of my car, away from the streetlights and the shadows. It's okay. We need to focus on what matters now. What is this financial key? What codes are we talking about? It's an old school thing. David didn't trust digital wallets or cloud services. He had a metal box, a lockbox. He always said if something went wrong, the box was the only thing that mattered. It had all the physical proof. The transfer keys, the printed ledger, the paper trail that proves where the money is going and who signed off on it. It links everything to the big boss. And where is this lockbox? David hid it in his house. The place you two had that fight. A cold wave washed over me. I realized the place David felt safest to hide his most dangerous secret was the house where I had just been angrily rejected. He must have trusted the house more than he trusted me. It's in the old study, the one with the heavy oak desk that was your father's. There's a loose floorboard near the back wall. He showed me once, weeks ago. Said, if I disappear, you go there and find it. Loose floorboard, oak desk, yes, but they were already there. Mrs. Hayes, the big one, the one with the scar across his cheek. They tore the place apart looking for it. They must not have found it yet, but they're coming back. I know they are. The realization hit me with the force of a punch. My son's life was being measured by a ticking clock against men with scars and violent intentions. This was not a small family misunderstanding anymore. This was the full scale of the crime threat. Peter, why did they take David? Why didn't they just kill him if they're so dangerous and the money is everything? Leverage. They need him alive for one thing, to open the final part of the transfer. It needs his voice print, or his eye scan, something personal, unique to him, but they only have a few hours before the money moves to a final, untraceable account overseas. They need the physical key to divert it. The lockbox is the only way to stop them or to take their money instead. Peter suddenly looked over my shoulder, his eyes wide with animal panic. Someone is coming, a car, it's too slow. It's a dark one. A slow-moving, dark sedan was creeping into the far end of the rest stop lot, its headlights dimmed as if trying to hide. He screamed the words, I told you I'm running. He bolted. He dropped the paper bag he was clutching and sprinted across the parking lot, vanishing instantly into the dark tree line behind the building. He was gone. I didn't chase him. It was too late. The sedan, still too far away to see details, continued to creep forward like a shark circling. I looked down at the ground where Peter had been standing. He had dropped his paper bag. It was a fast food bag, and spilling out of it were some crumbs and a single folded piece of paper. I scooped it up quickly, my fingers trembling. I jumped back into my car, slammed the door, and jammed the car into reverse. I watched the dark sedan. It wasn't driving fast. It was searching the shadows. I waited until the last possible second, then jammed the car into drive and spun out of the rest stop back toward the city and David's house. I drove with a focused intensity that I hadn't felt since David was a baby, and I was running on 2 hours of sleep and pure instinct. My retirement, my gentle routine, my recent sadness, all of it felt silly now, a soft cloud that had been pierced by a hard, freezing reality. David was a criminal. He was moving dirty money. He was in mortal danger because he needed money badly enough to betray people who were clearly worse than him. This knowledge was heavy. It was painful. It completely showed that my belief he was simply too busy or too stressed wasn't true. This was deep moral compromise. That night, for the first time in months, he cooked dinner. It was a simple pasta, but he made it himself. We ate in a silence that was no longer hostile but contemplative, heavy with the weight of a new beginning that felt more like a difficult probation. The collapse was complete. Sarah was gone, the debt was being managed, but the trust was still ash. He had a lifetime of work ahead of him to rebuild it. I had my house, my freedom, and the grim satisfaction of having survived. The fight was over. The cleanup had just begun. My daughter-in-law gave me a 1-hour ultimatum to leave my own home. Get out now. The cleanup was a brutal mathematical process. Michael's life became a spreadsheet of debt repayment. Every paycheck from the warehouse was divided, a portion going to creditors, matched by a release of funds from the escrow account Amanda controlled. He attended financial counseling, learning the language of compound interest and budgets, the very concepts he'd ignored for years. He did not complain. The shame had been burned out of him, replaced by a grim, focused determination. He was paying for more than debt. He was paying for his own redemption. 6 months to the day after Sarah left, he made the final payment on the last credit card. The escrow account was empty, its purpose fulfilled. He handed me the printed confirmation, his shoulders straighter than I had seen them in a decade. It's done, Mom. I took the paper. No, I said, not unkindly. The first part is done, now we talk about the future. I had him drive me to Thomas Richardson's office. We sat in the same chairs where months earlier I had learned the full extent of their betrayal. Thomas produced a new set of documents. This is an irrevocable trust, he explained to Michael. Your mother is placing the house and the majority of her liquid assets into it. Michael's face was unreadable. So, I get nothing. You get everything and nothing, I corrected. You will never own this house, the trust will. But you can earn the right to live in it for the rest of your life as its steward, not its owner. The terms are simple. You maintain steady employment. You continue financial counseling for 2 more years. You contribute to the upkeep of the property. You live a responsible, debt-free life. If you do this, the trust provides you a home. If you violate these terms, the trust instructs the executor to sell the property and donate the proceeds to charity. The decision and your future remain entirely in your hands. I handed him a pen. This was not an inheritance, it was a covenant. It was a promise that his future comfort could only be built on the foundation of his present responsibility. He read the pages slowly, then signed without hesitation. He finally understood. On the way home, he stopped at the hardware store and bought paint and supplies. The outside trim is looking faded, he said. That weekend, I watched from the garden as he worked, scraping and painting, tending to the house he would never own but could now truly respect. The fight was over. I had secured my legacy, and in doing so, I had given my son the one thing he truly needed. Not a handout, but a path to his own self-respect. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give is a boundary, and the greatest act of love is to make someone earn it. So, what do you think? Was I too harsh, or was this the only way to save my son from himself? Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with someone you love to protect them or to protect yourself? Share your story in the comments below. I read every one. And if this story of standing your ground resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.